Welcome to Fall, Rise, Give, a space where we invite you to dig into the real cause of your suffering, looking at opportunities for growth with a change in your beliefs, thoughts, and actions so you can be your true self and be inspired. Join us as we explore life's ups and downs and navigate the twists and turns, sharing stories of resilience, hope, and the transformative power of giving back. Whether you're looking for a change, in recovery, or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your go-to for candid conversations, raw emotions, and a whole lot of heart. Tune in and discover how to fall, rise, and give back on life's extraordinary journey. Welcome to another edition of Fall, Rise, Give. Turn struggles into opportunities by being your true self and help others. I'm bartender Bob. That is my good friend Kumar. And this week we're welcoming in Sean Barnard from the Twin Cities. Sean is joining us and is 11 years sober. Before we start off the show, we were just kind of talking before we started, and Sean and Kumar were talking a little bit about U2 and this being a good band that they both like. And I remember that Kumar told me that the name of the show actually came from a U2 song, Fall, Rise, Give, of course, the name of the show. Kumar, explain a little bit how U2 and Fall, Rise, Give work together.
Yeah, so Bob, I've seen the band U2 9 times. I always felt I would listen to U2, and I always felt it was a very spiritual band for me. It helped me through my life in so many ways. And then I was never really a fan of this song called The Fly, but it's been touching me a little bit. And I was looking for the name of the show, and I wanted to be unique. And then I also wanted to capture the theme that we have, that the story of redemption, the story of bouncing back in life, not giving up, and then also to give to others. Mm-hmm. And so the song The Fly from U2, I think it's Achtung Baby, is the Achtung album. And so that one was playing when I was on my dog walk in my headset. And I was like, a man must rise, a man must fall. And I just realized, I just got to turn it around. You're going to fall and you're going to rise. And then the key thing is to be really happy, you have to give. And that's how the name of this show came about. I think to even have high self-esteem, self-worth, whatever that is, the more you give to society, the more you give to others, the happier you're going to be. And I think that's kind of how the name came about. And I'm glad that Sean is a huge fan of the band U2. And Sean, tell us a little bit about your trip to Ireland and how you saw U2.
So I've been to Ireland 4 times, but I worked in radio at Cities 97 in the Twin Cities, and I decided that we should get a local pub involved and send listeners over to Ireland. But I built myself, and then Brian Oak, who was a longtime Twin Cities DJ, we were able to bring him over and go see U2 in Ireland at Croke Park. And so we were on the pitch, which is the field for those of you that don't play rugby or European football, as they call it. And it was exactly what you said, Kumar. It was a spiritual experience. 3 hours. It was 75 degrees and sunny, which is very rare for Ireland. The show ended, and we're getting ready to leave, and the crowd started organically singing some songs that U2 hadn't played. For the next hour, we as a group organically kept singing U2 songs together for the next hour. And I was nearly in tears. So that's my one of my Ireland stories for you.
That's awesome.
That is very cool. So, yeah. Sean, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was born in North Minneapolis at North Memorial Hospital. I won't go through my whole childhood, but it was a very traumatic, challenging childhood that had a lot of addiction in the family, abuse, moved 18 times by the time I was 18. But I'm not going to go into all of the trauma. I had homelessness, there was guns involved and people thrown through windows that were family members, all kinds of different things. I don't go into them because they're triggering for me still. I find if I start with something, it triggers other things and I go down this emotional path that I don't, I visit sometimes, but I don't want to live there, if you know what I mean. So I guess more than anything, I'd say that there's a long history of addiction in my family. There's a long history of mental illness in my family. But there's also guiding lights in my family, and that's what I've chosen to focus on for the rest of my life. The guiding lights were my paternal grandmother, Her name was Theophila, which means hand of God. And there was my maternal grandfather, Bud McCarthy, a very Irish gentleman who also had a heart of gold. He was a mailman who raised 6 kids, had a wife who was in active addiction until the day she died. But Grandpa Bud delivered mail. At his funeral, there were about 30 people there. They happened to be Native American. I only bring that up because there was so much poverty in the area where he delivered his mail. And my Aunt Shannon walked up and said, "Excuse me, are you at the wrong funeral?" And the guy said, "No, haven't you heard about us?" She said, "What am I supposed to know about you?" Well, he would deliver his mail route over that 30 years, and then week after week, he'd deliver our family groceries. Meanwhile, his wife's in active addiction and all the troubles that go along with that. He's got his parents living with him and 6 children. And by the way, never drove a car.
How do you deliver mail without driving a car?
You take the bus, you go get your heavy bag off of Bloomington and Lake, and you go back and forth until your mail route is done.
Wow.
And then that's not enough. You better go over to the grocery store and get a bag of groceries for people that are in need. Truly a remarkable man. And then my grandmother on the other side of the family, she had 7 kids. And when the 7th child was born, Grandpa moved out to LA, said he was going to send for the family and never did. He was a juggy whiskey every Wednesday guy. And, I think he did recover later in his life, but he was so far removed from the family. But Grandma raised those kids, never dated after that. And near the end of her life, she was still volunteering at Fairview Southdale Hospital 2 times a week to help other people. And she died at 87 years old. So just a truly remarkable woman. I had the great honor of delivering her eulogy, one of the hardest things I've ever written or ever delivered in my life. So instead of looking at the negatives of my life and the challenges of my life, I really focus on these guiding lights. And there's so many more than just my 2 grandparents. There were friends, parents, other people, teachers especially, that noticed a talent in me and believed in me. And I'm a big believer in honoring those people by doing good works in your life. So I've really, really tried to do that. And then also stopping back and thanking them many, many years later. Some people feel awkward about that, but I've actually, a 3rd grade teacher, I'll tell you, my mom came home when I was in 3rd grade. She was on heroin at the time, and she kicked us out at 3 o'clock in the morning, had destroyed the house, tipped over tables, and kicked my sisters and I out. And my parents were long since divorced at that point. So we didn't know where we were going to go. Nobody would pick us up. But a teacher, after we moved on with my dad at that point, a teacher named Margaret Wheaton, found out where I was living. And she took me to ice cream every week that summer and took me to go swimming. So 30, 40 years later, in real estate, I was at an open house and she had shown up. I had called her, I had messaged her to say thank you for being an angel in my life. So it's never too late to do that. That's a message for your listeners. I've listened to so many of your shows, by the way, and I just love, how many of your folks that you've had on that really live this life of gratitude. So I just wanted to relay that. That's another huge cornerstone of my sobriety and of my life and where I'm at.
Love it.
I saw on Facebook the other day, that you'd had 11 years now of sobriety. Was that hard for you to achieve?
It depends on what you mean by it. So it was hard for me to heal. Giving up drinking was not the end of the world for me. I wasn't an everyday drinker. I didn't get to that point, but I know I could have. I was a binger and I would escape into alcohol, and I got really pathetic. And I talked about those triggers and of the traumas of my childhood. I was a pathetic guy at the end of the night at the bar telling strangers about my childhood, as if there's a fun guy to hang out with. So for me, it was equal parts getting involved with AA and recovery and therapy. And the first day of my therapy, my therapist said, "I'm going to retire soon. I'm going to tell you something. You're an alcoholic. So you need to go either to treatment or 90 meetings in 90 days. I'm a little obsessive, so I went to 200 meetings in 180 days.
Wow.
And I still go to meetings. I sponsor several people. For those of you that don't know about the AA program, that's really helping somebody help themselves go through the steps and achieve a life of sobriety and hopefully serenity so that they can in turn help other people. And I absolutely love it. In my drinking days, I was very Jekyll and Hyde. So I was still coaching my kids' sports and, helping out at church, and I'd mentor people. I've mentored 40 some people in my life for free. Some people call it life coaching, the people that charge for it.
Right.
Call it life coaching. I mentor people and help them get unstuck. So then I thought, hey, if I drink and do something really stupid and not a character, I'll just volunteer. I'll do something nice to make up for it. Well, that doesn't work. On the coin that I receive, it says, to thine own self be true. And I know you guys talk about that a lot on your shows. And that's another cornerstone of my life, that I have to be true to myself. I have to be able to look at myself in the mirror. And the three of us are around the same age. I think we're a couple of years apart. I don't know about you guys, but I think a lot about my legacy. I've had the great honor of delivering many eulogies, and it's hard to not think about your own life. And what is my life for? What am I here for? It used to be in my early days, Bob, and you and I spent years in radio. It used to be all about me and what I could do and what I could achieve. I wanted to be the next Letterman, or I wanted to be on Saturday Night Live. And I thought, that's what I got to do. I got to be this bigger than life personality. And in my grandmother's eulogy, I said, live your life like Mother Teresa. And she was quoted as saying, do not lead the masses, lead one by one. And that's what I try to do with my life. And it's not saving people. I've never saved anyone in my life. What I have done is help people become unstuck, and I've helped people help themselves. And the case studies, the stories that I have of people that have dramatically changed their lives and lived lives of peace and serenity, I'm so proud of that. And it's certainly the program, the situations where people are from AA, a lot of those stories are not going to be told in public. That's okay. I just am glad that I've been able to help people help themselves. And I have friends go, why are you still going to AA meetings now? I've said, well, number one is connection. Whether you're at a U2 concert or an AA meeting or having coffee with somebody, or you pair it up with somebody on the golf course, Kumar, that connection is key, right? And so I'll just say this. I haven't heard you guys talk about this a lot on your other programs, and I listened to a lot of them in preparation for today's talk. But I had to go through the steps so that I could ask for forgiveness of the people that I hurt, to make amends, to really ask them how I could make that right. Ultimately, so hopefully I could be forgiven, so I could forgive others, but really so I could forgive myself. And I do not want to be my worst days. And I've found if you're able to do all those things, you're able to be more present with each person that you're with. The greatest compliment I get today in my life is that you really seem at peace and you look at me when I'm talking to you, while everybody else is, and I'm holding up my phone for those of you listening, the other people are like, what's that? Oh, they're looking back at their phone back and forth. I really try to focus on people and really listen to their lives. And that's what a gift. What a gift.
Sean, I think there's so many tidbits in there that you just put out there. It looks like we'll have you back again. There's so much wealth of
Thank you.
knowledge and experience there as well. I want to stop for a moment on the Mother Teresa story, just briefly. I want to mention how she touched me and my life. I'm a huge fan of her, huge fan of her. And she was a huge fan of St. Francis.
Yes.
That's where she got her. Yeah. I was lucky enough to be in Assisi as well. That's a very spiritual town in Italy, for those that don't know. She went to the poorest city in India, in the poorest neighborhood, and she did the laundry of the lepers. She washed them and clothed them and do the things that nobody wanted to do. And she served them individually, like you said, and she became a saint. And her foundation ended up being worth, I think, $500 million at one point.
Yes.
But she really cared about, and people asked her, "Why are you doing this?" And she said, "I saw the face of Jesus in these people."
That's just incredible.
It's incredible. And so I have a affinity for Christianity since I was a little kid.
Yes.
I went to Catholic school in India, Sacred Heart Catholic School.
Yeah.
And then I became a Catholic through Sacred Heart Church in Seattle. And I have this multidimensional faith with Hinduism, Buddhism, and Christianity.
Yes.
So I don't really box myself into one area, but I do have an affinity for Christianity and Catholicism. And what was fascinating is at this Catholic university, I barely got in for the MBA program. I had to put a promotional package together. My company was paying for it. And I met the student there, and we started an internet company. But before we started the internet company, we went to dinner with his wife, and I learned that she actually went to Calcutta and worked with Mother Teresa.
Wow.
And the fact that she worked there blew me away, and I said I had to be in business with this guy. And what luck with this guy was. I'm like, if you're married to such a spiritual person, we have to be business partners together. And we went through some ups and downs. Me and my internet company ended up being worth millions from it. And,
I'm aware.
Ups and downs of life. But anyway, so Mother Teresa's connection is what really got me in a partnership with this guy. And the partnership was very fruitful, even though we went through these horrible ups and downs of raising money and firing people and doing all sorts of interesting things that we didn't want to do, and ups and downs of business, right? And so I just wanted to bring that story up, that she added so much to my life because of a connection that she actually had a woman from Seattle work with her and touched me in such a way. And so you never know what you're going to get in life. Life is like a box of chocolates, but you're right. Stories of people in these amazing little things that they do. And that's the same thing in Bob and I, right? We're doing little things to make a difference. The other day we had a guest on 2 weeks ago. He was ultra marathoner, and he inspired me to run again. I run 4 marathons, and it just, I get a lot out of these programs, just motivation, inspiration, listening to our guests and people. So anyway, I just want to interrupt there for a second, saying by doing little things, this woman became a saint. She actually touched me in my life in Seattle, and was a huge boon for my success.
I don't know if either of you have read the book, The Art of Happiness, but Dr. William Cutler, Western psychologist, interviews the Dalai Lama. And it starts with the Dalai Lama showing up 2 hours late. And Dr. Cutler said, well, could I ask why you're running so behind? He said, well, yes, there was a housekeeper, and we had this incredible conversation, and I didn't want it to end. So he spent 2 hours talking to a housekeeper at the hotel that he was staying at. So similarly, that sense that Mother Teresa on one hand, but the Dalai Lama, in Buddhism, I've seen the Buddhism that I've read is about the fact that we are all equals. We all have value, and we have a shared value. And, your business partner, to me, a good marriage, a good partnership of any kind, we have shared values.
Yeah,
if you don't have shared values, nothing else is gonna work. So that's a great starting point. Love that story.
Kind of a lot of what you guys are saying, it's about the little things in life, and it's about the connections. I know that Kumar and I connected after 38 years of, being out of high school. You and I, Sean, actually have a couple of connections, which I didn't know about until the other day when we were setting this all up, that we actually both worked at the same place, however, at different times. So, I mean, it's kind of funny to look at the way that life is, that, there's a connection here and a connection there and a connection there, and life works, and things that are supposed to work out do work out and happen.
Well, my life, I think one of the important things, and a lot of this happened through recovery and therapy, but I had to relook at my life, and I know what the rest of my life is about, whether I die tomorrow or if I'm granted another 30 plus years. It's about great relationships, that connection, and making those stronger. It's about great experiences, and it's about giving back. The end. And I know if I'm unsettled, if I battle some depression, some anxiety, if I'm not feeling right, I have to go back to those cornerstones of my life of am I strengthening relationships, or am I wasting time with people that don't have shared values? Am I fighting with people on things where we may never come to a compromise on it? Am I giving myself things to look forward to with great experiences? And am I somehow giving back? Because when I'm at my worst, if I reach out to help somebody else, I get out of my own head and my own pity party, and I start thinking about that other person and just watching these people get unstuck. I'll tell you one very quick story, and I know we're a podcast here, so we have time, right?
Yep.
I had a kid, and I'll keep his anonymity, but you talk about connection. He walked up to me in a meeting and asked if I would sponsor him, and I said, yeah, I'll absolutely sponsor you. Through the course of that conversation, I found out that his stepmother was to be my employee, and I was supposed to fire her a year after her husband died of cancer, and I would not fire her. And therefore, I was pushed out of that job situation. So a city of 3.2 million in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
And we had that connection right away. There's a big connection right there. This young man, he was in his early 20s, had been kicked out of the U of M 3 times. He had some legal troubles happening as well. He will celebrate 10 years of sobriety on January 16th. Not only did he graduate from the U of M, but he was given a full ride to Mitchell Hamlin Law School. I was in tears at the graduation ceremony. His parents weren't, but I was. Right. I was heave crying because I was so happy for him. And he chose the most noble profession. He's an attorney that works on a sliding scale for defendants. So he's basically taken a vow of poverty to help others that are going through legal challenges. And there are story after story after story in my life through AA and through my other mentoring that I've watched these people change their lives by doing the work. And I've just helped them along and challenged them, kept them accountable, and believed in them along the way as people believed in me.
Yeah. We talk a lot about people's bottoms, right?
Yes.
And we talk a lot about the addiction. We talk about all of this. The attitude adjustment program, as we call it,
yes.
in the show here. It's interesting. People have this misconception of it.
Yes.
I think. And I'm like you, never got a DUI.
Yeah.
Did become a daily drinker after work, kind of a thing during COVID. But I think for me, more specifically a binge drinker, I wanted to get drunk every time I drank.
Sure.
I just wanted to get away from my problems, my stresses, my anxiety, all sorts of mental challenges there as well. Mainly anxiety is my issue of inheritance, I guess. The biggest thing that for me is we talk a lot about the challenges, the struggles, and then once we overcome them, we find the gifts, right? The gifts of that is what we want to share with other people. And I think that what happened, what in the attitude adjustment program, they talk about what was it like, what happened, and then what is it like now?
Yes.
What is it like now? I was reading something about somebody asking a question on a Facebook reel or something. It says, hey, you've been sober now. What is it like? Because people thought that their social life would end.
Yes.
When they became sober. And I was like, what? And maybe I did too, because I drank in a social situation a lot, either with events, parties, and clubs or bars or whatever I would go to. But really, for me, the connections that I have, like you talked about today, that's really being true connections, the true social part of it.
Yes.
My social circle of really good friends has increased so much that my social life is so much better now. They're meaningful connections. And I still have my golf buddies who drink a lot and all that stuff, and that's fine.
Yeah.
There's a place for that in my life. There's a little box for that kind of relationship. But there's a whole bunch of other relationships that came out of the attitude adjustment program or connections like yourself. I can see us being friends.
Yes,
so,
yes, for sure.
Yeah, and so I think that's the beauty of this life that we're leading in sobriety or in being dry or being clean or whatever you want to call it. But I think the attitude adjustment program brings this spiritual sense. It's the modern day church that Jesus would want.
Yes.
Because it's where the people who really struggle hang out, and they become really vulnerable, and they become really strong once they overcome their challenges. Anyway, that's what I wanted to just add there.
Well, I love it because it's about authentic connection, right? That we're not clouded. And I'll include some of the concerts that I used to go to that could have been this great spiritual experience. I was so clouded in drunkenness that I was blacked out for part of those shows.
Yeah.
What a shame. What a shame. And now, I have a lot of acquaintances. I have a handful of friends, but I have so many authentic connections.
Yeah.
And that comes through vulnerability. And I wasn't as willing to be vulnerable many years ago in my life because everything to me was a show. It was a mask. It was trying to show that I was smarter than other people or that I could debate better than them or whatever it happened to be, instead of being humble and listening to people and learning from them. I think both of you gentlemen, I could see talking to you guys about stories of my life that I'm so grateful, I don't live in perfect Zen at this point in my life, but you know what I'm good at? Getting myself back to center. I know how to center myself and ground myself. I love that you talk about the chakras so much on your show, and I'm still a beginner when it comes to the chakras and understanding all of them. But I love it. I'm a huge believer that we are all energy. Yeah, that energy all goes somewhere else. That's just science, right? But I love it, and I feel that energy when I'm around people. And even when, we're on essentially what's a Zoom call right now, I can feel that energy from you guys. That here's two good people that I didn't know a half hour ago that are just trying to make their lives better and make other people's lives better and contribute to society. What a gift that would be if everybody just had that feeling in them that it's not about me. My life's going to be okay no matter what. How can I give back? How can I connect with other people authentically?
Sean, I just want to say thanks for noticing that, because I kind of feel that way too. That we're trying to, help other people just overcome some of the simple things in lives and some of the more difficult things in life. So let me ask you this question. We ask this question to every one of our guests, and it's got a lot of great answers, and it's got a lot of thought provoked. And you probably know what question I'm going to ask now, because if you've listened to them. How do you want to be known, Sean? How do you want to be known?
I tell you what, there's a couple things, and my Uncle Troy drank himself to death 4 years ago, and that's the tragedy side of it. But Troy's gift, and I did his eulogy as well. Troy was one of the most hilarious people I've ever been around in my entire life. He was a bartender as well, Bob, like you, and he loved it. He loved making people's day, and he told he was the best joke teller I've ever heard. And at his funeral, I talked about the generosity of humor. Think about how generous it is to want to tell people jokes and to leave them laughing. So in my legacy, part of my life is I love to make people laugh, even strangers. I'll be the guy, at the store, at the line at the grocery store, and I love to make people laugh. I love to leave people laughing no matter what. And that happens through authentic connection, through listening, and then retorting back with something that has a twist, which is what makes it comedy, right?
100%.
Laughter is a legacy that I would love to have, and there's a time and a place for that. But I hope that my legacy will be in that people say, he really helped people. He really helped people. And I hope that people have the courage to step up and say that I helped them. And what I really, really hope for is that they tell people when they step up there to talk about me, they say, and here's how I helped other people. And they talk about how they paid it forward. This life is not that complicated. It's really more simple than we can imagine. I believe we have a cure for every disease on this planet. If we put the money towards that instead of wasteful things, we have the opportunity to help each other, to serve each other in every possible way if we put our energy towards that. So I get down on the world sometimes still. I'm sure you two gentlemen do as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But then I stop back and I say, I can't control all that. What I can do is try to help people and pay attention. Be alert in your life. Pay attention to what's around you. Take a minute to pause before you react so negatively to something in your life. Take a little pause. And the last thing I'll say is this, is that I want people to know that my intentions were good. Intentions are everything. And sometimes when people offend us, it's important to say, just pause for a second and say, hey, what were your intentions there? Like, what did you mean by that? Instead of reacting. I'm Irish, so there's a tendency to fire back and hit twice as hard. Instead of stopping down and saying, hey, what were your intentions there? And I want people to know in my life, and I hope what they say about me is, he had really good intentions. He didn't always do everything right. He made some mistakes in his life. But man, he really turned things around. He did some good work, and he had really good intentions.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fall, Rise, Give, where we explore stories of resilience, growth, and giving back. If you enjoyed today's episode, please visit our website at www.fallrisegive.com. Also, consider subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform and leaving us a review. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you inspiring stories. Stay tuned for our next episode, and remember, every fall is a chance to rise, and every rise is an opportunity to give. Until next time, keep falling, rising, and giving. This is Fall, Rise, Give, produced by podcastforhire.com. Thank you for listening.